Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Today we're going to talk about math and Mean Girls. And here's the thing, math is part of the plot in a direct way, and we're going to get into that. And we're going to talk about like Mean Girls as a whole because it's kind of a bonkers thing when you think about it, right? Like you have this movie that is inspired by a self-help slash parenting book, and it goes on to become a cultural juggernaut, and that is wild because here's the thing, Mean Girls has had a sequel that no one really talks about, and I'm guessing most people don't know about. It has a musical, a movie based on that musical, a book that's tied with that musical. There's also been novelizations, a graphic novel, games, countless memes, references, and parodies, and just so much more. And that's wild. And again, math is a plot point. And I look forward to talking about that as well as like how math is tied with it in that meta sense as well, and just talk about math and talk about Mean Girls. And I want to have some fun doing it. I want to focus in on the original 2004 movie, but also talk about the 2024 movie that was based on the musical. And yeah, so I'm gonna have fun. There will absolutely be spoilers ahead, and I say that as though you don't know what goes down in that movie or in that whole franchise. But I do want to mention that just in case you haven't seen it and don't want to know anything about it, which is hard to do at this point. But yeah, so spoilers ahead. And with that being said, get in winners. I'm aware that the line is get in losers, but I didn't want to say losers, even in reference, which, it's mean and that's appropriate, but I still didn't want to say it. I don't know. I'm moving on. Let's get in, get into it. And again, spoilers ahead. So while it is tempting for me to do a bit of a build up and talk about, you know, how math is a plot point, um, I want to talk about it directly, and it's like not straying too far from how it enters into the movie because it's like pretty important from jump. Because one of the things is that like Katie, our de facto main character, um, she likes math. And what I like about her reasoning is like in that original, she says, because it's the same in every language, which there's a lot that you can say that about that, but the idea is like math is math, right? And then there's a similar but differently stated reason in the 2024 version, which is she likes it because it's real. There's also a song where she is talking about romance, but she's also talking about math. And I like that because it's like, okay, yeah, there's other parts of the song, but all I heard was thank you, math. But more seriously, right? Like, it's not just something that she said in the beginning. It's an ongoing plot point because we see that she's clearly into math, right? She has no problem being a mathlete in the beginning, but several people throughout the film say it's like social suicide to be a mathlete. And then she changes to blend in with the plastics and all that, and she strays further from that, and she lies about struggling with math academically to impress a boy. You see all those changes add up, and then in the end, that does change. you know she ends up eventually uh, joining the Mathletes, although it's extra credit, but also part of a cool redemption because she wanted to do that anyway. Um, and so I like that idea, and that in the end they do go to like a Mathlete championship, and that's pretty cool. And without that, we don't have like the whole limit does not exist line, which I dig. Um, so like math is actually like pretty important in that plot because it is part of like Katie's journey, right? Like she's someone who likes it but suppresses it to fit in, not and like fit in with like the plastics, and also to like impress a boy at that time. And he was like because like in the both the films, right? Like he is somewhat struggling with that because he doesn't know certain things that like Katie is asking him, and you know that they could have played around with that more. But the whole thing though is that like she likes math. She's good at it in an academic sense. She also has an idea of that larger picture of it, and throughout her journey of like, struggling and fitting in and letting the power go to her head and all that good stuff, she still comes back. And when she's more herself, she embraces the math. I dig it. And yes, there are a lot of other things in that movie. And we'll get to that to a degree. But I just wanted to start with that math plot point because I think that's really cool. Also, I do like that there's a scene where, you know, Katie, she's talking to Regina in the cafeteria, and they're talking about like, fat percentage for the food and all that. And like, she calculates that out. Um, the unfortunate source of that conversation is not ideal, but I do like that, math was being talked about in a sense like outside of school. Because right, like one of the things that I've been saying, like not only in my videos but like outside of them too, is that math is everywhere. It's in everything. The only reason why it exists as a class, why it exists as an academic and professional field, is because we've been doing it the whole time, and we've been trying to like refine that as time goes on, right? Like if you're doing math in the academic sense, right? You're learning that in school. You're learning the language side of it. You're learning like the problem solving side of it. Um, but it's important not to forget the context. So I liked moments like that where you could see like, hey, they're talking about outside of the classroom as well, and just like seeing how math plays out in you know that school setting is always interesting to me because there's so much you can say about that. But outside of that direct plot point, you know, math is used like in universe the same way it's used here, like for everything, and there's no shortage of it because people use it for work. People use it for school. People use it as they eat, as they work out, um, as they play games, play sports, you name it, right? Do art. Which there's a more eloquent way to say that, but you get my idea. It's everywhere and it's in everything, right? And in that meta sense, there's so much that can be said, right? Because not only are we talking about math at different points of the film, right? But like when you look at what it takes to film, what it takes to construct a scene, right? There's math in how that scene is constructed, how it's filmed. There's math in the screenplay and how you're going to be like adapting that when you're making that film. There's math in the actors, math in their dialogue, how loud they're talking, how they're breathing, how they're moving. There's math in blocking off these characters in different scenes and putting everything together. Why did I say it so oddly? Um, there's math in putting everything together, and so you have these actors, right? They're moving around, they're taking different positions, they're doing different things at different angles, and meanwhile you're filming, and there's math in that camera and how it's working, math in the lighting, math in the sound design, math in the music, math in the costumes, math at every conceivable level to put together in a very deliberate way this film. And so I think about those sort of things when I'm thinking about the films. And then like when I think about something like the movie, you know, there's something. Sorry, the 2024 movie, there's some things that you can say that kind of extend to just like theater in general. Um, and actually, you can say the same about the original, and I'll explain what I mean. So there is a dance number in the original that they do, which is probably pretty infamous at this point. And there's math in how that works, right? Math in the choreography, um, math in that motion, and how that gets across to you. And then you take that, and that's just like one scene from the original, but like there are several dance numbers in the 2024 version that's based on a musical, right? There's like math in those songs and the choreography that we see throughout those songs because you see these characters that are dancing, and they might be making different shapes with their body or different parts of their body. They're moving pretty much nonstop, and sometimes flipping. And as you see that, you might not think about it, but it's math in action, right? Because like we live in a universe of shapes and of motion, and on that alone, you cannot escape the math. And I've had some people go like, "Whoa, oh, isn't that physics?" It's like it's physics and it's math. Two things can be true at once, because right, math is there. It is physics. It is chemistry. It's biology. It's art. It's everything, and we don't teach that, but that makes it no less true. And so I like thinking about those things, like thinking about the meta context. And with all that being said, it's like there's no shortage of other things that you can talk about. as far as Mean Girls, as far as musicals and movies go in general. And I encourage you to have those discussions. And then as far as how I feel about the films, like, so let's talk about the original one first. It's like I feel like it does deserve his fame. It's a pretty funny film, um, problematic at times, but still funny. Um, and yeah, it's crazy that it's still kicking and in that sense of cultural impact, and that so many people have so many fond things that they can say about it. As far as like the 2024 film goes, I actually did like that. It feels different at points for sure. I think like the essential character and plot points largely remain intact, but it has a different energy. It has a different feel. And I don't just say that because of the musical numbers, because there's several points in the film where you can go about your business, and then a musical number will happen, and you remember that this is in part a musical, right? Like so to me, that's not just why it has a different feel, right? Like, it's kind of hard to like place my finger in it. I guess like some of it is like, and this isn't a bad thing. It's just like, hey, this is different, right? Some of it is like, technology is updated, or has updated in real life, and so you can see that reflection in the film. Like, notably social media, which was like it was around when that first Mean Girls came out, but not like this. Not like this by far. Like, right, it was the early stages. Like, I remember that. Like, I was there. It was not like this for sure. But you do see stuff like that, and it does change the nature and feel with it. But I think they largely work well with that. Um, yeah. So I think the other thing is just like there's certain things that were problematic that were taken out. But just to be clear, for those who are concerned, there's still plenty of problematic stuff in there if you were too worried. But it's just like it does feel different because like I watched them like fairly recently, um, and fairly recently in terms of when I watched them separately, right? Um, and yeah, so it's like it's not like the new one is toothless, but it's like they did get rid of some things that might not have gelled well, but they still have plenty to say because like in the end it's like the end message is like, hey, people regardless of how they feel about you, a lot of people just want to coexist, so get off their dicks, like, and that's barely me paraphrasing. That's pretty much what they say at the end of the movie. So it's not like they're afraid to go there. It's not like they don't cuss or anything like that. It's just like there's definitely certain words or certain plot points that were like disregarded. So it does have a little feel like that because it's like but it's not bad. And also, we're dealing with different casts. And like I think both casts they do their own thing. I think like that first cast, like they're iconic. And I think that being the case does not take away from the new cast coming in there and doing their own thing with it. It's just like you do get a different energy and feel despite the plot largely being the same. And again, like what I was saying, like with like getting rid of certain things, there's still plenty that you could say about the new one in terms of like, it's not edgeless, you know, but it's just different. So I like both versions, and I think like I don't, what else did I want to say about that? That like if you like the original, you can find something to like about the 2024 version. You know, because like if you look into reviews, you see like it is mixed and it is all over the place. That being said, is but I'm sorry, it is late and I'm winding down. But I did want to say like I do think like both versions are good, but for different reasons, and also similar reasons too, or the same reasons in some cases. But overall, like Mean Girls, as I close this down, is again it's a cultural juggernaut. It's been kicking around for over 20 years, and people are still having conversations. And like I said, there's been several memes, several references. Um, and parodies, and there's been definitely like parts that have become part of this larger Mean Girls franchise, and that's insane because like I'm sure when you go out there, you want to make a good product, right? You want to make a good movie, you want to make a good book, good game, etc. But you maybe don't consider it's going to be the level. Sorry, you might not think that it's going to be the success that it is, right? Like, or like that level of success. There was a better way for me to say it. But okay, I'm getting tired and I want to wrap this up. So I'll say this: like Mean Girls, yeah, it is still big, and I don't think anyone involved could have ever predicted that it was going to be as big as it is. And with that being said, it's as big as it is. With math is a major plot point. I'm just saying. I'll see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.